Hello and welcome to That's a Wrap, a roundup of movie news from the past week. I'm Joe Kohle. Here is what we are working on for you today. I will be joined by executive editor at AwardsWatch, Ryan McQuade. We will discuss a new cover story from Variety that highlights the resurgence that is happening at the box office this year. We also have a picks preview today. Ryan and I will share our thoughts on the recently released trailers for Digger and Behemoth, and we will wrap things up with what to watch. This week we are highlighting the film The Odyssey, which released in theaters nationwide today. Let's now bring in executive editor of AwardsWatch, Ryan McQuade. Ryan, thank you for joining us again. Really appreciate having you back on.
Thanks for having me back on, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, as the kids say, not only are you back on this show, but we are so back in general. Maybe that's yes. A phrase that is a bit too old for the kids to still be saying.
I don't know.
And I'm 33 years old, so like the fact that I'm saying it makes it less cool. So yeah.
I was just gonna say, like, if we're saying it, does that mean it's already dated?
Yes, for sure. For sure. If it's reached us, it means it's no longer a thing that kids say, and that is cool. But what I mean is movies are back. Yes. Movie theaters are back, movie audiences are back, and young people, speaking of young people, are a big reason for it. On Wednesday, Variety published its cover story for its latest issue titled "The Box Office Bounces Back, Gen Z, Surprise Hits, and More Have Hollywood Banking on a $10 billion year." The article notes that for the first time since the pandemic threatened theaters with extinction, Hollywood has recently been letting out a huge sigh of relief due to a diverse array of films released this year, contributing to a resurgence at the box office. It also mentions how Hollywood has scored this year with familiar franchises and family films, including the Super Mario Galaxy movie, Toy Story 5, and The Devil Wears Prada 2, along with more unconventional stories like Project Hail Mary, Michael, Obsession, and Backrooms. Variety says that according to RenTrack, revenues for the summer box office are in line with those of 2019. Overall ticket sales are 10% above the same point in 2025. And at this pace, yearly domestic grosses are expected to hit $10 billion for the first time since the onset of the pandemic. Variety's story also explains how younger audiences are driving the comeback, and that a recent report from Fandango found that 87% of Gen Zers and 82% of millennials saw at least one movie in a cinema in the past 12 months, compared with 70% of Gen Xers and 58% of baby boomers. Filmmaker Richard Linklater is quoted in the article saying, "Just when you thought all these young people who grew up on TikTok are done with the movies, it turns out they like to go with their friends." And co-director of Project Hail Mary, Christopher Miller, said in the article, quote, "Young people can sniff cynicism, and when a movie was made solely out of a desire to make money or to satisfy studio conglomerate interest, they want to see things that were made out of passion and love." Ryan, on past episodes of the show, we've had some conversations about the state of the box office, recent movie-going habits, and how the success of films like Obsession and Backrooms show that audiences are eager to turn out for movies that are fresh and original. As a movie lover, what excites you the most about this recent box office resurgence, and how does Hollywood and all of us not mess this up and make sure that it can continue?
Oh man! Once again, Joe loves to ask me 3 questions.
So that was two. That was two. Two and a half.
It felt like 2.5. But it's okay, man. I love them.
Just like getting it all in there instead of the
just kidding. I got you. I think what excites me about it is the fact that there is a resurgence, and that there is a deep wanting for, I think, human connection at any point. And I think when you watch films at home, they can be a very isolating incident. I think when you watch them on a phone, you take away the scope and a scale of what a filmmaker is trying to do. There's just certain films that I think, we talked about the drama, I think, earlier this year. We've talked about a movie like The Invite that's in theaters right now. I think if you watch those films at home, they have a vastly different experience, and your overall opinion can change If you're not watching that with a group of, with lack of a better phrase, strangers, then you are watching that, off of a streaming service. And I think there was this it takes a while for things to get back to the way these things were. And I think for a while, people wanted familiarity. They wanted safe things to get them back to a theater, like a Spider-Man No Way Home or a Top Gun Maverick. Those are pretty big things that can get people interested back into spending that money in it. And we have to remember also, we've talked a lot about this, it's an expensive endeavor nowadays to go to a movie theater if you're a family, let alone if you're an individual. Now, they have plans and different things, but it's still like the average ticket price is getting closer to $25. And so there needs to be eventized filmmaking, and most of the films that you mentioned there were long-awaited projects, were things that were built with great word of mouth or event-style filmmaking, like the film that we're going to talk about later in the Odyssey, as well as also, Project Hail Mary, and even The Devil Wears Prada and Toy Story 5. Those are big films, and they've done well. But the stories of knowing that an existing IP, like the songbook of Michael Jackson, is very popular, Obsession and Backrooms having a sort of internet following and speaking to a younger generation, leaning into horror films, leaning into genre, leaning into things that audiences will discuss. I think that's been a major thing. I want to go to the second point that you mentioned, though, with Christopher Miller there of Project Hail Mary. He's absolutely right, though, in saying that what we've seen over the last couple of weeks, especially during the summer with like Mandalorian and Grogu, with
Moana.
Supergirl, with Moana.
These franchise films, because they mentioned the article about how some franchise films are doing well, but a lot of them also aren't, and that it seems like those movies would have been more successful when you were talking about films that were more safe a few years ago, but now it seems like audiences are more eager to get something that's fresh and original.
Even the Minions, because the Minions film didn't have nearly as much of success, but a Toy Story movie does, because those movies aren't released every 2-3 years. Those are 6, 7, 8 years in between all those projects, sometimes even a decade. And audiences will return to things if they've had time and that nostalgia is built in, and it doesn't feel like a rushed product. And also that it seems necessary to make it. And I think with a lot of those failures has come a lot of great surprises. It's been a good mix, but audiences have spoken, and they're tired of large cinematic universes. I think for the most part, I think they're tired of everything connecting, and I think they want true escapism, true originality, and they want a singular voice. I think also too, Joe, behind all of it, I think they want to be led by filmmakers, and that right now kind of reminds me a lot of us reverting backwards from the 80s into the 70s, where we're going to have filmmakers above the marquee really driving forward. I mean, Christopher Nolan's one of those. Ryan Coogler and Paul Thomas Anderson were the leaders last year with this. Lord and Miller have led a generation of people from the Jump Street movies and the Lego movies into Project Hail Mary. So I think that it would incentivize Hollywood to lean more into, okay, we've got to make these events. We've got to be able to understand, maybe is the next book adaptation the right thing to do, or give somebody a check if they've earned it to expand out their world and their viewpoint of filmmaking. And I think that audiences will go to those if it has stars behind it, great talent, and the studios aren't afraid to invest in that, because like the Supergirl argument we talked about, like that movie's marketing is just terrible. And like you can even feel the studios not want to put that movie out there, and it's a movie they gave $200 million to, and so you can tell. I think audiences can tell when a movie is important and when it's just like the weekend release. And I think that going forward, it's not about less movies. It's about giving the same attention to the Odyssey as we are to every film going forward. Now, not everyone's Christopher Nolan, but I mean, you got to start somewhere.
Yeah, I think those are all good points. In the article from Variety, Seth Rogen is quoted. I think it was taken from an interview he did on a red carpet for the invite with Variety. And I think Seth Rogen sneakily is one of the smartest people when it comes to like talking about the business of Hollywood, which makes sense why the studio is so good of a show. But he mentioned how he's constantly having conversations with studio heads, and that you can see that there's a sense of optimism that they haven't felt in a long time, and that it reminds him a little bit more of how it felt 15 years ago, and how these studio heads feel like they can win again. And there's a lot about the how film production is stabilized, and a lot of these studios are releasing more films per year than they have in the past few years, and that a lot of these big studios have committed to 45-day windows, and the importance of that they've recognized that films will do better on streaming and VOD if they're in theaters longer, because there's more buildup, and the stories of these films, people are more attached to them. I think it's a great time. It's a great time to be a movie fan. It's very exciting that it's been such a good year after a few years that have been a little bit up and down. But we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Ryan and I are going to share our thoughts on the recently released trailers for Digger and Behemoth. Stay with us. Welcome back. I'm still here with executive editor at AwardsWatch, Ryan McQuade. It is now time for Picks Preview, where we break down the latest trailers and teasers for some of Hollywood's most anticipated films. On Monday, Warner Brothers released the official trailer for Digger, and it finally gives us a look at Tom Cruise's unrecognizable transformation as Digger Rockwell. Digger has been described as a comedy of catastrophic proportions. Per the film's official logline, it follows Cruise as the most powerful man in the world who embarks on a frantic mission to prove he is humanity's savior before the disaster he's unleashed destroys everything. According to Variety, Cruise's character is an oil baron whose company may have set off an ecological disaster that could also spark a nuclear war. Digger also stars Riz Ahmed, John Goodman, Sandra Hüller, Michael Stuhlbarg, and Jesse Plemons. The film is directed by Alejandro González Iñárritu from a screenplay he co-wrote. His previous films include 2014's Birdman and 2015's The Revenant. He won the Academy Award for directing for both films. Last week, ahead of the trailer's release online, Cruise previewed the footage for press, film critics, and fans in a special presentation at the Stephen J. Ross Theater on the Warner Brothers lot in Los Angeles. Variety says Digger was shot in the UK over 6 months, with Iñárritu's longtime collaborator Emmanuel Lubezki using VistaVision. It is Cruise's first film with Warner Brothers since he signed a deal in January 2024 to develop and produce original and franchise theatrical films under a strategic partnership with the studio. Along with the new trailer, Warner Brothers released the official poster for Digger on Monday. The film releases in theaters on October 2nd. Ryan, what did you think of this trailer?
I think it looked terrible. I think it looked like an absolute disaster that we're about to have. I am a little bit tired of the eat the rich films. I get it, and I'm fully on board with it, and understand that a lot of these things have been covered in films for like the last half decade, it feels like. But this is the type of Iñárritu stuff that bothers me all the time. The sort of self-seriousness, the thinking that you're funny and telling me that you're funny instead of just showing me it.
What is that? Is that just that it's being billed as a comedy?
I think that Iñárritu's vibe when he makes American projects like something like Birdman or even Bardo, a movie I like and that rubbed people the wrong way as well.
Watched it for the first time last night, actually.
Yeah. Okay.
In preparation for this,
did you like it or not?
I feel like I was higher on it than what it seemed like the general critical consensus was. It seemed like
I like that film a lot, but I understand that like his sort of sense of humor and zaniness is an acquired taste. And I think that this was like a movie that I was very mixed on last year, Mickey 17. I was thinking a lot of Adam McKay's sort of obnoxious humor. I was thinking of Ruben Östlund's sort of obnoxious humor. And they all four have this sort of similar eat the rich, quality to them that's set within our time, and then there's a catastrophe involved, and it's environmental, and it's darkly comedic, and it's got transformative performances. It just felt like something I've seen before, and I was hoping that it wasn't going to be like this. And I had heard a lot of the sort of rumblings out of CinemaCon about this trailer, and they were everything that I thought it was going to be. And it screams, please give me an Oscar and take me seriously, because I'm not being an action star anymore from Tom Cruise, which is something I've wanted to see him do for a long time. I wish he would go back to working in the days of like with Stanley Kubrick or with Paul Thomas Anderson. I actually think he would be great in something with like Christopher Nolan, because they both share a sense of scale and size for and care for cinema. But this trailer just did absolutely nothing for me. I think it's going to, just off the trailer alone, looks like going to be the most obnoxious film of the year. I think it's going to divide people. It'll be interesting to see if it's even if it's a commercial play. It's got an insane budget behind it, and so for it to this has been a really trying year for Warner Brothers. They've had a lot of ups, like a lot of downs, as opposed to last year being up. I think Doom Part 3 will be a financial and critical, most likely, success for them. The trailer for that, like another trailer for that, released this week and did absolutely fantastic online numbers. This one looks very troubling to me, but I expect it to be in the conversation. I know a lot of people are going to say, "Oh, well, this is it's his Oscar to win now and everything." And I'm not there yet. I don't honestly think he's going to win the Oscar for this. I think that I think if he gets nominated, that would most likely be the reward, because based off of this first look, it looks like it's going to be more of a Razzie performance than it is to be an Oscar performance. Yeah.
All right. Well, I mean,
and I seem to be the dissenter on it, so I think a lot of people are very excited.
There was a lot of criticism of the look of the film, that it looks very washed out. I think that was obviously a stylistic choice to like go with the whole dystopian vibe. Mm-hmm. I think it's interesting that Tom Cruise is trying to play like a character like this and try to really transform, instead of just playing Tom Cruise in an action movie. And I'm excited to see him do a film that is outside of the stuff he's been doing recently. As you mentioned, there's already talk about the potential for Cruise to be nominated and to win the Oscar for actor in a leading role for his performance in this film. He currently has the highest odds from Gold Derby to land a nomination. So yeah, I'm not going to judge this based on the trailer. I wouldn't say that I, based on the trailer, became more excited than I already was, but I don't know if I became less excited. I'm going to wait to judge the film on the film itself, but I understand your feelings about it.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that anyone that watches that trailer and thinks there's the Oscar win is kind of crazy a little bit. But I will also say that like this movie's going to be deeply political, deeply social, and timely. Cruise is a very buttoned up, non pick sides type of person. He's very much like the Michael Jordan. When Michael Jordan used to say like, well, Republicans buy sneakers too. That's kind of where Cruise has been like in this lane. He's going to have no choice but to share opinions about the world on this.
He will.
And when
he will not. He won't.
And that's the problem, is that his director will. And he won't. And I think that that's going to be a fascinating conversation piece to go along with this film. It's like, I think he has to, he has to open up. So if that opens up one of our biggest movie stars to actually have to talk about things other than the 6 films that he mentions over and over again, it's inspiration for his Mission Impossible films, then I'm all for it. But he has to do a little bit of what PTA and Leo did last year, which is they went on the tour together and really opened up about each other's relationship and everything. And when he did that little, event with the influencers and the content creators, it was just him and the VistaVision camera. Inarritu was nowhere to be found. And
they're very much trying to promote this as like, this is Tom
a Cruise vehicle.
Yeah.
And it's like, but at the end of the day, it's an Alejandro Gonzalez Inarritu film.
And I want to say, prior to last night, I had actually only ever seen 2 Inarritu films. Now it's 3. I've only seen Bardo, The Revenant, and Birdman. I haven't seen Beautiful. I haven't seen Babel. There seems to be a lot of negativity around him and from certain critics.
I like him. He's a very nice man. But
I'm high on Birdman. I like The Revenant. I feel like more than most, but maybe I'm biased because I'm a big Leo guy, and I just very much so bought into the whole look of the film and it being a technical marvel, and the shooting with natural light and all of that. Don't think I was as high on Bardo as those films, but I'm excited to see this film. But I have some of the same reservations that you have. But we got to move on to another trailer. On Tuesday, Searchlight Pictures released the official teaser for Behemoth. This is the film's official logline. A gifted cellist, Alex, returns home to Los Angeles after 20 years on the road. Music, which has been the constant, all-consuming river of his life, begins to carry him on an adventure that will change him forever. Pedro Pascal stars as Alex. The movie's cast also includes Olivia Wilde, Ava Victor, Hank Azaria, and Will Arnett. Behemoth is written and directed by Tony Gilroy. His previous films as a writer-director are 2007's Michael Clayton, 2009's Duplicity, and 2012's The Bourne Legacy. He also co-wrote the screenplay for the first 3 Jason Bourne films starring Matt Damon, and for 2016's Rogue One, a Star Wars story. And he was the creator of the Star Wars Disney Plus series Andor. On an episode of the Smartless podcast, Wilde described the film as a love letter to film composers and movie music. According to the playlist, 9 composers are contributing music to the film, including Michael Giacchino, James Newton Howard, and Alan Silvestri. The group is known as the Behemoth Collective. Behemoth will release in theaters on December 4th. Ryan, what did you think of this trailer?
Give it to me.
Yeah.
Give me this movie right now. I have been in line as the number one Gilroy stan for a very, very long time. I know that a lot of audiences and mass audiences have really gotten to clamor over his marvelous work on Andor. But I have been in love with this man's work.
Michael Clayton, perfect movie.
I mean, as I was just going to say, that's the movie right there. Michael Clayton. It's, to me, one of the, when we talk about the masterpieces of 07 and There Will Be Blood and Zodiac and No Country for Old Men
and Superbad
and Superbad and all the films that come from that year, it's that one's right up there with them. In my opinion. I think it's a perfect film. I'm interested in seeing just how this movie is. I have some connections with some people that have worked on the film, and without giving anything away, I can just tell you that everything they've told me, it's been an absolute delight and a thrill and a project that they've all just love and put their love into. And so I'm just eager to see wherever this is going to land, what film festivals this is going to potentially go to. I think this is Focus Features, big Oscar play. And I think Gilroy is riding high off of being in a galaxy far, far away. And he's come home and back to the cinemas, and he's going to deliver, I think, something pretty magical, maybe to the extent of like a La La Land-esque sort of film. So I'm really, really excited about this. The 9 composers, make it 19 composers. It wouldn't matter. It makes me just excited to see what is in this box and that he's going to deliver for us.
Yeah, Andor was sick, but I'm glad. It's wild that he hasn't directed a movie since 2012.
Yeah, it is. And
I almost had to double check that. I was like, what?
I like Duplicity, his second film, and The Bourne Legacy is not all his fault. But I think that he is a voice and one of our great writers and has a distinct view of the world. And if he could just deliver something close to Michael Clayton level, then we're talking about gold here, Joe.
Yeah, I'm very pumped for it. But we are going to take another quick break. Coming up, a new movie to watch in theaters this weekend is The Odyssey. Ryan has seen the film. He will be telling us what he thought of it. That's after a quick break. Welcome back. It's time now for What to Watch, where we put the spotlight on movies hitting both theaters and streamers. Today, we are highlighting The Odyssey. The film is directed by Christopher Nolan from a screenplay he wrote based on Homer's ancient Greek epic poem. It boasts a mega all-star cast that includes Matt Damon, Tom Holland, Anne Hathaway, Robert Pattinson, Lupita Nyong'o, Samantha Morton, Zendaya, Charlize Theron, John Bernthal, Benny Safdie, John Leguizamo, Mia Goth, Himesh Patel, Travis Scott, Elliot Page, and many more. The Odyssey is Nolan's 13th feature film as a director. His previous films include 2010's Inception, 2014's Interstellar, 2017's Dunkirk, as well as the Dark Knight trilogy. He also wrote and directed 2023's Oppenheimer, which won 7 Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Best Director. Universal Pictures describes The Odyssey as a mythic action epic that was shot across the world using brand new IMAX film technology. The movie is making history as the first narrative film to be shot entirely with IMAX film cameras. In the past, IMAX cameras were too noisy to film dialogue scenes up close to the actor, but a new generation of IMAX cameras and a film casing called a blimp were created to significantly reduce the noise that the cameras produce. The Odyssey will be presented in theaters in 6 different formats: IMAX 70mm, IMAX with laser, which is the standard digital IMAX 70mm film, 35mm film, Dolby Vision, and premium large format. If you want to learn more about these formats, Universal released a series of videos featuring the stars of the Odyssey, explaining the differences between each one. Tickets for showings of the Odyssey in IMAX 70mm went on sale on July 17th of last year, exactly 1 year ago today and 1 year ahead of the film's release in theaters. They reportedly sold out almost instantly, with roughly 95% of seats bought within an hour, generating $1.5 million in sales. Universal says the film earned $17.6 million in Thursday night preview screenings, which is the best preview number of the year. According to Variety, The Odyssey is projected to open with $90 to $100 million at the domestic box office, which would be the biggest debut for a film from Christopher Nolan since 2012's The Dark Knight Rises. Ryan, as I mentioned in the tease earlier, you have seen The Odyssey. You wrote a review of the film for AwardsWatch. What did you think of the film?
I think the movie is a visual delight and a narrative misstep for Christopher Nolan. I think that there are no way you can criticize the visuals of this movie. There's no way you can do that. It is, from a technical standpoint, a marvelous achievement to take the Odyssey and actually fully give it everything within the power of what we talked about earlier in the episode, of giving audiences what they want, taking them on a journey that they've never seen before with this technology. And what they've done with these IMAX cameras is nothing short of miraculous. And his attention to detail is extraordinary from a visual standpoint. These action set pieces are large and they're loud and they're terrifying and they have a thematic message behind all of them. And those are the highlights of this movie, is every time the movie doesn't really have to dive too much into the story surrounding the journey home and actually is just focused on Matt Damon's Odysseus's journey home. That middle section is some of the best filmmaking Christopher Nolan's ever done in his career. It's the beginning and most of the end that is the issue. The setup, the way he uses mythology is going to take me maybe another time or two to actually fully see if it works or if it's as clunky as I thought it was on its first viewing. I will say I did not see the film in IMAX 70mm, but I did see it in 70mm. And I thought the film looked beautiful. The sound was great. The performances are a little bit all over the board. There's a lot of great performances, some good performances, and those start with Matt Damon, Anne Hathaway, Samantha Morton, John Leguizamo, and Robert Pattinson. They're all fantastic here with good supporting returns from Corey Hawkins, Hamish Patel. Bill Irwin as the Cyclops is fantastic. he's actually playing it. There's no CGI involved. But then there's missteps with characters that are played by Charlize Theron and Zendaya and Lupita Nyong'o, which are very, very small, almost cameo-esque roles that are very limited. And then the performance that just doesn't work for me. And I need to see it again in order to know fully if it doesn't work for me, is Tom Holland, who I think is supremely miscast in this role and doesn't have the chops to go up against Damon and Pattinson and Hathaway, who are seasoned, not only actors in general, but just Nolan seasoned actors. They've worked with this director before and know his style and speed and what he wants out of his films. I gave this movie a B. I think I love a lot of it. I do have issues with it as someone that read Emily Wilson's translation that Nolan heavily used as his guiding light on this. It would be very curious to sit down and talk with him about why he made some of these choices to be more realistic in his depictions of gods rather than be more spiritual and be more diving fully in mythological and diving right into all that myth and mythology and some of the silliness that is involved with it. Because if you watch his Batman movies, those movies are very silly, even though that they are set in real time. And there are sequences like with the Giants and with the Cyclops and with Cersei that, Joe, I think do dive into it and actually provide Nolan with what we've heard and you've heard, which is like it almost plays out like horror sequences, and they're truly terrifying, intense. They remind you of the tension that builds on the beaches of Dunkirk, and yet some of the other decisions, just editing speaking as well with this movie too, it's all over the place, and that's sort of the sprawling nature of the Odyssey's story just in general. But I thought that he would have been able to keep it a little bit tighter when it came to some of those things and be a little less cut here and save some here to then make the sequence be longer here. It does feel like a movie that has a longer cut in it, but because of the IMAX format, it can only go up to 3 hours. And Jennifer Lame did say in interviews that there's a lot of footage that we just didn't use. And I felt it at times, especially in the beginning. I think the setup is rough. It's rough waters. But once you get in those boats with Odysseus and get to, the Trojan War has never looked more terrifying and beautiful. The Trojan horse has never looked more massive in scale. So once you're in the hands of Damon and Nolan there, that's when the movie truly sings. And by the end, there's some typical Nolan things, like his one of his characters asking way too many questions, or the hand-to-hand combat not being as clear in the images as I would want it. But overall, I'm going to see it again. I'm seeing it again tomorrow, so I can see it in 70 millimeter IMAX. I think that this is such a monumental achievement, and so many people outright love it, that this will be a massive Oscar player. I think this has the potential to even tie Sinners as the all-time nominee recipient ever for a film, just 1 year after they've done that, because I think so many people love so many performances on a technical level. Everything's aces. There's even an original song from Travis Scott in at the end of the film. So I think the sky's the limit for it, and I think that this right now is the film to beat as the Oscar player for Best Picture and Best Director.
All right. As always,
on it, but I think it's going to be up there.
Yeah, as always, so. I respect and appreciate your opinion. I just want to say I have not seen it yet. I'm seeing it on Saturday in IMAX 70 millimeter, and I have a ticket to see it the following weekend in just 70 millimeter. I do want to just say the film as of this taping has an 89 on Metacritic, so you seem to be a bit lower than most.
My score on Metacritic is 75.
Right.
And I would probably say it, because of their grading system, I would say it's more in the 80. But that 20%, it drags it down. And listen, I'm a massive fan of Nolan. I think Oppenheimer is maybe the best film of the decade so far. So
you're big on Tenet too, right?
And I love Tenet, I love Interstellar and Dunkirk. I think he's been on an all-time run. Again, this is some of the best stuff and worst stuff. It's not my thrill to be the guy that's like actually pointing out the issues of the Odyssey to people, but it feels like a lot. And I think that a lot of people actually didn't. And I'm not saying you're not doing it either, Joe. I think there were a lot of people that just judged the film and didn't judge it against the text and against Wilson's adaptation, which is what Nolan really is striving for here. So
it seems like maybe people, and this was mentioned, there were some other reviews from some big outlets that were, I think, more negative than yours. Richard Brody from The New Yorker penned a very well-written and I think respectful mixed review that I think voiced a lot of the same criticisms that you did. And he kind of mentioned that he thinks people who haven't read the Odyssey and are just going into it without having read it will maybe enjoy it more. Time's review was quite negative. And I just want to say, I did see some others who were a bit critical of Holland's performance, but there were some others that
who love it.
Praised it. Deadline's review says Tom Holland may be playing a child, but his performance is bursting with a newfound maturity. It's his strongest to date. David Ehrlich of IndieWire said in his review that Holland's eternal boyishness is put to great use. And that's just a few. There are other positive reviews about his performance. But yeah, I'm based on everything. I'm trying to like both get a gauge of like what the general critical consensus is, but not too much to the point where I feel like it's going to influence my perspective going into the film, because I want to be able to make up my own thoughts. But I have not read the Odyssey. I didn't read it in school. And when I heard that this movie was getting made, I thought about reading it and the Iliad, but then I was like, I kind of want my first experience with that story to be with this film. So I could see being a little bit higher on it than you were, but like I said, I appreciate your perspective and your opinion. And we've been talking about this film for a while. And like you said, I think regardless, it's probably going to be a big player at the Oscars.
And regardless of any of my criticisms, I also said, I'm going to see it again. That's the thing. So I want to see it in the actual format that,
and are there some
that
other,
we're supposed to see it.
Yeah. Are there some other Nolan films that you were lower on when you first saw it? Like I saw you gave Tenet 5 stars on Letterboxd.
I was always on board with Tenet. I was always like, I will say that I was higher on Dark Knight Rises when it first came out, and then I was lower. I think that Dunkirk, I was kind of like, I thought that was good. Dunkirk is a 5-star film. It's so and then over time, Dunkirk has become like, oh, this is actually like phenomenal. And the same with Memento as well. Yeah. I wasn't always as high on Memento, and now I think that like that's a pretty perfect film as well. So so not always the case with Nolan where I'm like, where it's like where I'm with someone like Paul Thomas Anderson, where I was like, well, that's a 5-star, we can just move on our day. Nolan is someone that sometimes his films do grow for me, or they lower for me. But I'm going to see it again. I'm probably going to see it like at least 2 or 3 more times, because that's just the nature of the beast. Yeah.
David Ehrlich did mention on X that he thought it was better on a second watch, like he says, of most of Nolan's best films. And he said he's starting to think that this is one of them. But yeah, so I'm interested to see if your thoughts change or not. But yeah, Ryan, as I said, I always appreciate your opinion, appreciate you joining the show once again. I hope you have a good time at the movies tomorrow again when you see it.
I hope you have a great time and love it, man. I really do.
All right. I'll talk to you. All right. So now to some stories from this week that were left on the cutting room floor that we didn't have time to get to. Warner Brothers delaying The Batman Part 2 again. The film is moving from October 1st, 2027 to February 18th, 2028. Matt Reeves announced the new date in a video released on Vimeo that featured the first camera test footage of Robert Pattinson's return as the Caped Crusader. Deadline reporting that Michael Waldron is developing and writing the script for a Nova feature film at Marvel Studios. The outlet says he could direct the project if it moves forward. Waldron previously wrote the screenplay for 2022's Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness and was the showrunner for Marvel's Loki series. He also co-wrote the screenplay for Avengers Doomsday. And one more superhero movie story. According to multiple reports, Xolo Maridueña is returning as Blue Beetle in the upcoming Superman sequel, Man of Tomorrow. The Hollywood Reporter reporting that a new Nightmare on Elm Street movie is in the works from Paramount. Deadline reporting that Jenna Ortega and Rose Byrne will be starring in the next film from If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You director Mary Bronstein. The project for Warner Brothers' new indie label Clockwork is called Nasty and centers around an athlete who is battling for a spot on the Olympics gymnastics team and must overcome her biggest opponent, her coach. And Focus Features releasing the trailer for The Uprising, a historical drama starring Andrew Garfield and directed by Paul Greengrass. And before we go, I just wanted to pay tribute to Sam Neill, who passed away on Monday. He was, of course, best known for his iconic role in 1993's Jurassic Park. Tributes were paid this week by fellow actors and directors across Hollywood, including Steven Spielberg. Spielberg said, quote, "I adored making all the Jurassic movies with him, along with Laura Dern and Jeff Goldblum. We will always have our Jurassic family, and Sam will never be forgotten by us or his many millions of fans around the world." In April, the actor announced he was cancer-free after undergoing 5 years of treatment for blood cancer. Neill's family released a statement saying, quote, "The loss was sudden and unexpected, but blessed by the fact that Sam remained cancer-free." Sam Neill was 78 years old. And that does it for today's edition of That's a Wrap. Make sure to stay tuned for more on Pix11 Plus. I'm Joe Kohle. Thank you for watching.